Copper, Chile's principal source of natural wealth, was nationalized in 1971. Today, again, is almost completely foreign, and the country loses billions in earnings every year, even though it produces 6.6 times more.
Cada día nosotros sentimos como una pena. ¿Entiendes?
Every day we feel the pain, because there is no work for our sons, our husbands. We feel desperate. Here at the company, they haven't given us any hope. They always say there would be progress, there would be work, there would be improvements in Andacollo. No, it is not true. Every day it's getting worse.
There are places for us self-employed miners to work, but they won't let us. The big companies are building unemployment, and the national mining company also want to be big, but the miner cannot survive. Despite the government's claimed investment in the mining industry were going to be very beneficial for the country, our studies have categorically demonstrated the opposite, that they have caused huge harm to the national economy and the society.
The Chilean case is used as an example all over the world as the most outstanding success of the neoliberal model in an emerging market. The figures on exports, foreign investments, growth, low inflation and others promote an optimistic path while other economies debase in the midst of crisis. One argument in favor of success is that beginning in 1990, foreign investment in Chile began a surprising growth. From $1.3 billion per year, it rose to almost $9 billion in 1999. This investment was directed mainly toward the exportation of mineral resources. The result of this huge investment has been to make Chile the world's major copper producer. Chile now accounts for about 40% of world copper production. In spite of this success, which was publicly proclaimed to the four winds, in 1998, Chile began to experience a severe economic contraction. The response of the authority was naturally to blame it on the Asian crisis. Nevertheless, economists who are not committed to the current economic model point out that this crisis has its roots on how transnational corporations are exploiting the country's natural wealth, which, among other effects, has led to a significant lowering on the price of copper due to world overproduction generated surprisingly from Chile itself by transnational corporations. Between 1995 and 1999, Chilean copper production experienced a spectacular growth. This phenomenon, while positive on the surface, met with a worldwide increase in demand, which was lower than the increase in production generated by Chile. The increase in copper production generated by Chile alone was more than total worldwide demand, as it is shown in the picture. This created a situation of overproduction with the obvious consequence of a drop in price.
From Chile, these foreign companies begin a worldwide overproduction. We went from 1,400,000 tons in 1989 to 4.5 million tons in 1999.
En 1999.
What's that mean to Chile? It means that acting against the law of supply and demand, this overproduction knocked the price through the floor.
Esta sobreproducción tira al suelo el precio.
There is a very important change here in the world market. There is a very strong increase in production over and above the increase in world consumption. And this is due mainly to production that comes from Chile. The national copper company, Codelco, has increased production, but relatively little. The global increase in Chilean production comes almost exclusively from the large foreign companies.
¿Por qué se produce esto?
Why is this happening? Because the large companies that exploit copper in Chile are subsidiaries of other companies that are the ones processing copper overseas.
Que son las que elaboran el cobre en sus empresas en el extranjero. Y mientras más barato esté el cobre,
so the cheaper the copper gets in Chile, the easier it is for these overseas companies to import raw materials to build car, electric cable, etc.
Automóviles, electricidad, etc.
Officials and corporate entrepreneurs have pointed to the Asian crisis as the main reason for the drop in the price of copper. Nevertheless, the data disproves such statements. The illustration shows in red the variation in the international price of copper. World demand is in green and worldwide production in yellow. This picture shows two things: that the drop in price began in 1995, while the Asian crisis started at the end of 1997. Secondly, historically, there have been a cyclical price drop at the same time that demand has increased. This is in contrast to the current situation in which the price drop is occurring at the same time that demand continues to grow. Why is this happening? There is an uncontrolled growth in production over and above demand. Senator Lavandero, Professor Caputo, and other researchers have denounced this situation on several occasions. In spite of the importance and seriousness of their claims, they were not taken into account by the authorities and were dismissed by political and entrepreneurial sectors of society. There was never any response from the government.
The economic power of the big mining companies influences our government. It influences the management of the state-owned companies. It influences the appointment of executives. It influences the appointment of the presidents of several companies and the mining councils. And this means that when you start talking about this issue, everyone goes quiet and no one wants to talk. We've said that silence acts as an accomplice and in the political world, and we don't want to be part of that.
The root of this situation, which leads to enormous losses that today affect the Chilean state and the whole nation, is not recent. You have to go back to the days of the dictatorship with Hernán Vigi as Ministry of Finance. In those days, there were a series of decrees granting making it easy for foreign companies to repatriate income collections to avoid tax payments and, what is worse, give mining concessions with private property on the sites, which meant the de facto denationalization of the principal source of the country's wealth, in spite of the fact that the Constitution itself says that all subsoil wealth belongs to the nation. Chile became a sanctuary for foreign investments. There was an enormous flow of foreign capital, which over the years will bring with it all negative consequences that the country is facing today.
When globalization means freedom for foreign companies to invest in other countries, they focus their investments on raw materials or energy in a way that provides them with what they need. And competition leads to an increase on production. In economic science, there are models called Impoverishing growth model. That is what is happening in Chile. Copper production may be growing enormously, but the low price that this growth in production causes has led to decrease the country's overall income.
Economic effects. Chile is producing almost 3 times more copper now than it was 10 years ago, but this does not mean more wealth. On the contrary, the Chilean state, which used to get 50% of the total value of copper exports, today is getting only 5% of it. The price drop due to overproduction, the handing over of the plots to private property, the lack of tax payments, all explains this situation.
Copper is a non-renewable resource, and in every country in the world, when a non-renewable resource is exploited, there are mining fees related to production or royalty. The only country where there is not mining fees in relation to production or royalty is Chile. That explains why, even in the middle of a crisis, large-scale foreign capital arrived to invest in copper because it's just come and take. Most of these companies have used and abused a legal structure called constructural society. Society which was created to make the small and medium national companies and self-employed miners more dynamic, to make them into small entrepreneurs. It makes entrepreneurs the one responsible for declaring profits. No investigation is done on the company by the tax collection office. Disputada de las Condes is a subsidiary of Exxon. Exxon has this subsidiary here in Chile that for 20 years has been declaring losses. Does anyone really believe that the largest company in the world, Exxon, could have a subsidiary in Chile losing money for consecutive 20 years? How is this sophistry carried out? Exxon has a subsidiary in Bermudas, and that branch office lends money to Disputada Las Condes with interest rates that are much higher than the international rate. And during these 20 years, profit from Disputada Las Condes were transformed into interest payment to a subsidiary of Exxon, which obtained profits and give them to Exxon's main office.
Se transforman en pago de intereses a una filial de la Exxon que obtiene las utilidades bajo el concepto de intereses, un concepto financiero, y ese concepto financiero se lo entrega a su casa matriz, la Exxon.
This phenomenon in which certain private companies pay less taxes started as a way of fostering the infusion of capital, but today it is the opposite. It's all the way around. This inflow of capital is putting a stop to development of the Chilean mining companies. In 1989, Chile financed 29% of the nation with copper. To be specific, Chile was able to finance the budget of Ministry of Health, Housing and Education. Today, producing 3 times more copper, instead of 29%, we are receiving 2.7% of the national budget.
Estamos recibiendo en vez del 29%, el 2,7% para el presupuesto de la nación.
Effects on employment. The first thing the companies do is reduce salaries, reduce the amount of workers, introduce technological innovations that displace workers. In Chile, since the dictatorship, there has been a change in the labor law, which allows for making flexible, in quotes, all regulations and all contracts for hiring workers in Chile. This idea of flexibility, which appears to be something positive, has become a situation that is, in a word, almost evil. This is the worst thing that could happen to a worker.
Se ha transformado en una situación, en una palabra casi perversa, porque es lo peor que le puede pasar a un trabajador.
Never have been foreign investments been subject to research on their impact on the environment and on the workers' health. We are inheriting a sick population. Workers that work at high altitude and live at sea level, this is causing excessive wear in terms of the physical condition. There is psychological harm. Workers at high altitude forget what are they doing at certain point, and that is very dangerous. Later, very serious heart damage and lung damage can result. In 1998, 16 workers died from lung edema. That is to say, they died being torn open at high altitude. So the lack of respect for a person's dignity, for his health, is also due to the government complacency and a legislation that is complacent.
Se debe a que también tenemos nosotros gobiernos complacientes. Legislación complaciente.
Due to the introduction of the idea of the free market, the fight generated at public bids on projects is incredibly big, incredibly dirty. Our complaint to Codelco and the big transnationals when they give out a project, whether it's to start a mine or to enlarge a mine, is that the criteria that they continue to use? Is to give the project to the company which charge less, not to the one which fulfills the minimum requirements to carry out the work. The contractor recovers this low cost by mistreating the worker, paying low salaries and providing poor working conditions and poor social conditions as well. That is to say, it seems to me that they continue to violate and abuse the condition of the worker.
With foreign investment in the mining sector, everything increased except employment, which decreased 25%. Due to overproduction and impoverishing model, the situation became more serious. Employment on a small mining industry has gone down 60%. Mining towns that mainly live on the country's main natural wealth have been harassed. In addition to unemployment, low salaries, labor instability, harassed working conditions, and the loss of social benefits, the way big companies work under the contractor system has an even more serious effect: the adaptation of workers' consciousness to the neoliberal model.
The old unionism involved more solidarity. Workers were more united. Not like now. They are all dispersed, each one acting in their own interest. Workers' solidarity has been lost, along with class consciousness. Now people think more with their stomachs than with their heads. That is the reality of the workers. With deep sorrow, we see other trade unions in the mining sector that have accepted the government policies, accepted the policies of the model, and as a result, they have formed strategic alliances which only serve to domesticate workers and not allow them to face the responsibility they have to the country and to preserve copper as a national industry.
Social and environmental effects. The way transnationals operate and the lack of control over them has also had a serious effect on mining towns in terms of life quality, the traditions and culture of its inhabitants, as well as in terms of the deterioration of the environment. After the company arrived, the needs were bigger, they were worse. There was no work for the people here. They didn't give any work to the people here because they brought their own workers. So the people here were left unemployed. So people have had to leave, abandon their town, their church, their virgin, which is the only thing that belongs to us, to whom we condemned ourselves once during a flood. So nothing would happen to us. So she would save us, free us from any danger. But instead, they've had to leave.
Para que no los pase nada, para que los salve, los libre de todo peligro. A lo contrario, han tenido que dejar.
Y en Andacollo se ha producido algo que es muy grave porque se está terminando con la familia.
In Andacollo, something very serious has taken place because they are putting an end to family, breaking it into pieces, because the men have to go outside to work and come home only every 15 days for a few days. So the children don't feel any affection for their father and don't respect him as they used to.
The rivalry that we have for water is with the mining companies, with the transnational which want to exploit underground water, which will dry up the wells, the dams, and will decrease the amount of water available for agriculture. If the foreign mining companies take the water that is now being used in agriculture, agriculture will die, the valley of watershed of Loa River will die, and we will only have romantic memories of the agriculture we once had and that we were unable to fight to keep it.
Y prácticamente estaríamos después con recuerdos románticos de que teníamos agricultura y que no fuimos capaces de defenderla.
We have here, at 200 or 300 meters, more or less a pile of lixiviation that is 1 kilometer long by 800 or 900 meters wide. One rock pile has copper that is being continuously irrigated by a solution of sulfuric acid with water, and when the wind comes from the rock piles toward the town, which it was happened most of the time, then these small drops are carried over here. They are breathed by the people and they soak the environment.
Son respiradas por la gente, impregnan el entorno.
We have trees here that are dying from the pollution due to the sulfuric acid. Here's a fruit, see? A quince, and these are the conditions it is left with.
There's no future for children here, nothing, not a future, no progress, and even less for those who are still growing.
In the past, the National Mining Company used to have machinery to open up paths, used to give the miners capital for them to work, and today there is nothing. Who do they favor? Of course they please the biggest, the transnational, and they have trampled us. This phenomenon that is happening in Chile is closely related to the globalization of the world economy and the relationship between developed countries and underdeveloped ones that have natural resources. So what is happening in Chile is surely happening in other places and can get worse if not awareness is taken.
In effect, once we become aware of what we've seen and heard in these testimonies, it becomes essential to understand that today it's imperative to search for new paths toward development. New paths that will open up as long governments fulfill their regulating role and do not give carte blanche to transnational interests. And social movements must create the spaces for a fair, sustainable, and a more humane world.